Why did God create evil? Is it part of a divine plan or a cosmic mistake? Such questions, in their very essence, penetrate the core of our theological and philosophical inquiries. They are not mere idle speculations, but pressing concerns that have troubled humanity for millennia. Indeed, what does the existence of evil reveal about God's nature and purpose? This inquiry is not merely academic. It touches the very fabric of our existence, our struggles, and our deepest fears. To ask this question is to embark on a journey into the heart of darkness and light, to explore the profound mysteries of our faith and the divine cosmos. In this video, we shall delve into one of the most profound and troubling questions about the nature of God and the existence of evil. It is a journey that requires both courage and humility, for we shall encounter perspectives and insights that may challenge and transform our understanding of good and evil. Prepare yourselves, dear viewers, to uncover surprising insights and challenging perspectives that will change how you understand good and evil. This is not a simple narrative of right and wrong, but a complex tapestry woven with threads of theology, philosophy, and human experience. Wait until the end of the video, as we will say a prayer together. Let us anchor our exploration with the words of the prophet Isaiah. I form the light and create darkness. I bring prosperity and create disaster. I, the Lord, do all these things. Isaiah 45, verse 7. This verse, startling in its candor, reveals a God who is intimately involved in the dualities of existence. It challenges our simplistic notions of a benevolent deity detached from the darker aspects of creation. Similarly, Proverbs 16:4 declares, "The Lord has made everything for its purpose, even the wicked for the day of trouble." This suggests a divine intentionality behind what we perceive as evil, an acknowledgement that everything under the sun has a role in the grand narrative of existence. In this video, we will explore why a benevolent God would create evil, examining theological, philosophical, and biblical perspectives. This is not an easy task, nor is it one to be taken lightly. We shall seek to uncover the deeper meanings and implications of evil within the context of divine creation. By doing so, we hope to provide a more nuanced and profound understanding of this perplexing issue, moving beyond simplistic explanations and embracing the complexity of the divine mystery. We will embark on this journey by first grounding ourselves in the biblical foundations, examining key texts that speak to the nature of evil and its role in the divine plan. From there, we shall delve into historical and theological interpretations, exploring how thinkers across the ages have grappled with the problem of evil and sought to reconcile it with the nature of a loving and just God. Finally, we will consider the cultural and modern implications of evil in the divine plan, looking at how contemporary perspectives and discoveries challenge and enrich our understanding of this age-old question. This structure will guide us through a comprehensive exploration, ensuring that we address the multifaceted nature of the problem of evil and provide our viewers with a well-rounded and thoughtful analysis. In the grand tapestry of biblical narrative, the concept of evil emerges not as a monolithic entity, but as a multifaceted phenomenon that reflects the complexities of human nature and divine intention. To understand why God created evil, we must first traverse the landscapes of Scripture, where evil is depicted, its origins narrated, and its purposes, both mysterious and explicit, unveiled. The Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. Genesis 6, verse 5. This verse, stark and uncompromising, confronts us with a vision of humanity ensnared in pervasive wickedness. It is a sobering reminder of the depth of human depravity and the propensity towards evil that seems to be an intrinsic part of our fallen condition. Yet within this dark portrayal, there is a glimmer of hope and purpose, as captured in Jeremiah 29:11. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. This declaration from the Almighty reassures us that even amidst the existence of evil, there is a divine plan oriented towards good, welfare, and hope. It suggests a redemptive trajectory woven into the very fabric of creation. To delve deeper into the nature of evil as depicted in the Bible, we must consider its portrayal across various texts and contexts. The biblical narrative does not shy away from the reality of evil. Rather, it confronts it head-on, acknowledging its presence and grappling with its implications. Evil in the Bible is often depicted through the actions and choices of individuals and nations. From the early chapters of Genesis, where Cain's jealousy leads to the first murder, to the recurrent cycles of idolatry and apostasy among the Israelites, evil is shown as a consequence of human free will. It is a distortion of the good that God intended, a rebellion against the divine order. The role of the fall and original sin in the existence of evil is pivotal in biblical theology. The narrative of Adam and Eve's disobedience in the Garden of Eden, Genesis 3, serves as the foundational story for understanding the entrance of sin and evil into the world. The serpent's temptation and the subsequent act of eating the forbidden fruit symbolize the first breach of divine command and the beginning of humanity's estrangement from God. This original sin, inherited by all of humanity, is seen as the root cause of moral evil. It taints human nature, inclining us towards sin and rebellion. The Apostle Paul, in his letter to the Romans, articulates this condition poignantly. Therefore, just as sin entered the world through one man, and death through sin, and in this way death came to all people because all sinned. Romans 5:12. However, the Bible also acknowledges the presence of natural evil, calamities, diseases, and disasters that afflict creation. These are not attributed to human actions, but are seen as part of the fallen state of the world, a world groaning for redemption. The book of Job presents a profound meditation on this aspect of evil, where Job's suffering is not a result of his sin, but a mysterious part of the divine drama. In examining the nature of evil in the Bible, we also encounter the figure of Satan, the adversary, who embodies the principle of opposition to God's will. The story of Job introduces Satan as the accuser, one who challenges the righteousness of humanity before God. In the New Testament, Satan is depicted as the tempter, the one who seeks to lead humanity astray, culminating in the temptation of Christ himself in the wilderness, Matthew 4:11. Yet, amidst these depictions of evil, the Bible consistently points towards the hope of redemption. The narrative arc from Genesis to Revelation is one of restoration and renewal. The promise of a Messiah, the sacrificial death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, and the ultimate vision of a new heaven and new earth, Revelation 21, all underscore the biblical message that evil, though real and pervasive, is not the final word. The role of the fall and original sin in the existence of evil highlights the need for divine intervention and grace. It underscores the biblical assertion that human efforts alone are insufficient to overcome evil. Only through the transformative power of God's grace, made manifest in Christ, can the chains of sin and death be broken. The biblical foundations present a nuanced and multifaceted understanding of evil. It is depicted as both a consequence of human free will and a reality of the fallen world. Yet within this narrative, there is a persistent thread of hope and redemption. The existence of evil, while challenging and often perplexing, ultimately serves to highlight the need for and the triumph of divine grace. In pondering the perennial problem of evil, we must grapple with one of the most formidable challenges to theistic belief. The question is stark and unyielding. If God is all-powerful and wholly good, how can evil exist? This conundrum, known as theodicy, has been a focal point of theological reflection and philosophical debate since the dawn of human thought. The term theodicy itself was coined by the philosopher Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz in the early 18th century, signifying a vindication of divine goodness in the face of the existence of evil. Yet long before Leibniz, the problem of evil occupied the minds of early church fathers and medieval theologians, each seeking to reconcile the presence of suffering and malevolence with their belief in a benevolent deity. One of the earliest and most influential voices in this discourse was Augustine of Hippo. Augustine posited that evil is not a substance, but rather a privation of good, a corruption of what was created good by God. According to Augustine, evil arises from the misuse of human free will. It is not something created by God, but rather a consequence of humanity's departure from divine order. Augustine's theodicy hinges on the notion of original sin, rooted in the disobedience of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. This original transgression introduced a hereditary stain upon all of humanity, inclining us towards sin and away from God. Consequently, the existence of moral evil, actions that deviate from God's will, can be understood as the inevitable outcome of human freedom misused. Thomas Aquinas, another towering figure in Christian thought, built upon Augustine's framework. Aquinas maintained that God's omnipotence and goodness are not negated by the existence of evil. He argued that God permits evil to bring about greater goods that could not otherwise be achieved. This perspective is encapsulated in the often quoted phrase, "O felix culpa," or "O happy fault," which suggests that the fall of man ultimately led to the greater good of human redemption through Christ. Medieval theologians also wrestled with the existence of natural evil, suffering, and disasters not directly caused by human actions. Aquinas, for instance, viewed natural evils as part of the overworld designed by God to achieve the greatest possible good. The suffering of innocents and the calamities of nature are, in this view, aspects of a complex system where each part, even those that seem harsh or cruel, contributes to the overall harmony and goodness of creation. Central to the theological debate on evil is the tension between God's sovereignty and human free will. This dichotomy raises profound questions. If God is sovereign, controlling all events, how can humans be genuinely free? Conversely, if humans possess free will, does this limit God's control over creation? Scriptural support for both perspectives can be found throughout the Bible, creating a dynamic interplay that theologians have sought to understand and explain. On one hand, the sovereignty of God is emphatically affirmed in texts such as Isaiah 46:10, where God declares, "I make known the end from the beginning, from ancient times what is still to come. I say, my purpose will stand, and I will do all that I please." Similarly, Proverbs 16:9 states, "In their hearts humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps," underscoring the belief that God's will ultimately prevails in all things. On the other hand, the Bible also upholds the reality of human free will and moral responsibility. Deuteronomy 30:19 exhorts the Israelites, "This day I call the heavens and the earth as witnesses against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Now choose life, so that you and your children may live." This call to choose implies a genuine capacity for human decision-making, a cornerstone of free will. Theologians like Augustine and Aquinas sought to harmonize these scriptural themes. Augustine, for instance, suggested that human free will operates within the bounds of God's foreknowledge and sovereignty. God, in his omniscience, knows all possible outcomes of human choices, yet this divine knowledge does not constrain human freedom. Instead, God's providence ensures that his ultimate purposes are fulfilled, even through the free actions of his creatures. Aquinas further developed this idea, arguing that God's causality operates on a different plane than human causality. While humans act freely within the created order, God, as the prime mover, sustains and guides all things from beyond. Thus, divine sovereignty and human freedom coexist without contradiction. In more recent times, the The tension between God's sovereignty and human free will has been explored through various theological frameworks. Calvinism, for instance, emphasizes divine predestination and the total sovereignty of God. John Calvin argued that God's will is the ultimate cause of all events, including human actions, yet humans remain morally accountable for their choices. In contrast, Arminianism upholds the primacy of human free will and argues that God's predestining work is based on his foreknowledge of human decisions. According to Jacobus Arminius, God's sovereignty is expressed through his knowledge and response to human free actions, preserving both divine control and human autonomy. The interplay between these perspectives reflects the profound mystery at the heart of the problem of evil. It challenges believers to hold in tension the truths of God's absolute sovereignty and the genuine freedom and moral responsibility of human beings. As we navigate this complex terrain, we are reminded of the limits of human understanding and the need for humility in our theological reflections. The historical and theological interpretations of the problem of evil reveal a rich tapestry of thought and debate. From Augustine's privation theory to Aquinas' greater good theodicy, from Calvinist predestination to Arminian free will, the quest to reconcile the existence of evil with a benevolent and omnipotent God continues to provoke deep reflection and dialogue. These perspectives, while diverse, converge in their ultimate aim to affirm the goodness and sovereignty of God amidst the reality of evil and suffering in our world. In our quest to understand the nature and purpose of evil, it is enlightening to explore how different religions grapple with this profound issue. Each faith tradition offers a unique lens through which to view the existence of evil, providing a rich tapestry of perspectives that deepen our own understanding. In Hinduism, the concept of evil is intricately tied to the law of karma. Karma, the principle of cause and effect, suggests that every action has consequences that reverberate through one's current life and future reincarnations. Evil deeds result in negative karma, which must be balanced through suffering or righteous actions. The cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, samsara, is seen as an opportunity for the soul to learn and evolve, ultimately striving towards liberation, moksha. Evil, therefore, is not a creation of a malevolent deity, but a consequence of human actions and ignorance. Buddhism, emerging from Hindu thought, also addresses the problem of evil through the lens of karma and samsara. However, it places a greater emphasis on the Four Noble Truths, which acknowledge the pervasive nature of suffering, dukkha, and the root causes of suffering, desire, attachment, and ignorance. The path to overcoming evil and suffering lies in the Eightfold Path, a guide to ethical conduct, mental discipline, and wisdom. In Buddhism, evil is understood as a natural part of existence that can be transcended through enlightenment. In contrast, Zoroastrianism presents a more dualistic view of good and evil. This ancient Persian religion posits a cosmic struggle between Ahura, the supreme god of good, and Angra Ahriman, the destructive spirit of evil. The world is a battleground where these forces contend for supremacy, and humans play a crucial role in supporting Ahura Mazda through righteous living and moral choices. Zoroastrianism profoundly influenced the development of later Abrahamic religions, particularly in its apocalyptic visions and the idea of a final judgment. Islam, like Judaism and Christianity, grapples with the existence of evil within the framework of a monotheistic belief in an all-powerful, all-knowing, and benevolent God. The Quran acknowledges the presence of both moral and natural evil, attributing moral evil to the misuse of human free will. The story of Iblis, Satan, refusing to bow to Adam, thus becoming the embodiment of evil, mirrors the biblical narrative of the fall of Lucifer. Evil and suffering are viewed as tests from Allah, providing opportunities for spiritual growth and demonstrating faith. Ultimately, evil is seen as part of Allah's divine wisdom, which humans cannot fully comprehend. The influence of these diverse perspectives on evil has significantly shaped Judeo-Christian thought, contributing to an evolving understanding of the nature and purpose of evil in the world. Early Christian theologians, particularly those in the cosmopolitan milieu of the Roman Empire, were exposed to a variety of religious ideas, which they engaged with and often adapted in their own theological reflections. The dualistic struggle between good and evil in Zoroastrianism, for instance, found resonance in Christian eschatology. The imagery of a final battle between the forces of light and darkness, as depicted in the Book of Revelation, echoes Zoroastrian apocalypticism. This influence is seen in the portrayal of Satan as a powerful adversary who will ultimately be vanquished by Christ. The philosophical underpinnings of Neoplatonism also played a crucial role in shaping Christian thought on evil. Neoplatonism, with its emphasis on the emanation of all things from the One, the Good, and the subsequent fall into material imperfection, offered a framework for understanding evil as a privation of good. Augustine's articulation of evil as a lack of good, rather than a substance in itself, reflects this philosophical heritage. In medieval scholasticism, theologians like Thomas Aquinas synthesized Christian doctrine with Aristotelian philosophy, further refining the understanding of evil. Aquinas' teleological view of the universe, in which all things are directed towards their ultimate good, provided a rationale for the existence of evil as a necessary aspect of a world designed to achieve the greatest possible good. The Protestant Reformation brought new perspectives on evil, particularly through the writings of Martin Luther and John Calvin. Luther's emphasis on the bondage of the will and the pervasive nature of sin underscored the depth of human depravity and the necessity of divine grace. Calvin's doctrine of predestination grappled with the paradox of a sovereign God permitting evil for the sake of his inscrutable purposes, a theme that continues to provoke theological debate. The understanding of evil within Judeo-Christian thought has not remained static, but has evolved in response to philosophical, scientific, and cultural developments. The Enlightenment, with its emphasis on reason and empirical evidence, challenged traditional notions of divine providence and theodicy. Thinkers like Voltaire and David Hume critiqued the idea of a benevolent God in the face of natural disasters and human suffering, prompting theologians to reconsider and refine their explanations of evil. In the modern era, existentialist and postmodern philosophies have further complicated the discourse on evil. The existentialist emphasis on individual freedom and responsibility, as articulated by thinkers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus, presents evil as a consequence of human choices in an absurd and indifferent universe. Postmodern critiques of grand narratives and objective truths have led to a more fragmented and subjective understanding of evil, where personal and cultural contexts significantly shape one's perception of good and evil. Contemporary theology continues to wrestle with these challenges, seeking to articulate a coherent and compassionate response to the problem of evil. Process theology, for instance, reimagines God's relationship with creation as dynamic and participatory, suggesting that God suffers with humanity and works to bring about good within the constraints of a world marked by genuine freedom and contingency. Liberation theology, emerging from the context of social and political struggles, emphasizes the need to address systemic evil and injustice. It calls for a praxis-oriented approach to theology, where the fight against oppression and the pursuit of social justice are integral to understanding and confronting evil. The exploration of evil across different religions and its influence on Judeo-Christian thought reveals a rich and complex tapestry of ideas. From the karmic consequences in Hinduism and Buddhism, to the cosmic dualism of Zoroastrianism, from the ethical monotheism of Islam to the evolving theodicies of Christianity, each tradition contributes valuable insights into the nature of evil and the human quest for meaning and redemption. This comparative and historical perspective enriches our understanding, reminding us that the problem of evil is not only a theological puzzle, but a profound human experience that transcends cultural and religious boundaries. In our exploration of the nature of evil, it is imperative to distinguish between two fundamental types: moral evil and natural evil. This distinction helps us understand the different dimensions of suffering and wrongdoing that permeate human existence and the natural world. Moral evil refers to the actions and choices of human beings that cause harm and suffering to others. It encompasses acts of cruelty, injustice, and malevolence that arise from the misuse of human free will. The Bible is replete with examples of moral evil, from the very first murder committed by Cain against his brother Abel, Genesis 4:8, to the treachery and betrayal that marked the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Theologically, moral evil is often seen as a direct consequence of the fall, the original disobedience of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. This act of defiance against God's command introduced sin into the world, corrupting human nature and inclining us towards evil. As Genesis 6:5 poignantly observes, the Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. Philosophically, moral evil poses a significant challenge to the notion of an omnipotent and benevolent God. If God is all-powerful, he could prevent evil actions. If he is all good, he would desire to do so. The existence of moral evil, therefore, raises questions about the nature of divine justice and the purpose of human freedom. One response to this dilemma is the free will defense, which argues that God endowed humans with free will as a necessary condition for genuine love and moral responsibility. Without the capacity to choose between good and evil, our actions would be devoid of moral significance. Free will, therefore, is a greater good that justifies the possibility of moral evil. This perspective is eloquently captured by Augustine, who posited that evil is not a substance but a privation of good, a deviation from the divine order caused by human choice. In contrast, natural evil encompasses the suffering and harm caused by natural processes and events that are not directly attributable to human actions. This includes natural disasters such as earthquakes, floods, and hurricanes, as well as diseases and genetic disorders. The existence of natural evil raises profound questions about the nature of creation and the character of the Creator. Biblically, natural evil is often depicted as part of the fallen state of the world. The curse pronounced upon the ground in Genesis 3:17, resulting in thorns, thistles, and painful toil, signifies the disruption of the original harmony between humanity and nature. The suffering experienced by Job, inflicted by natural calamities and disease, serves as a poignant narrative of innocent suffering and the inscrutability of divine purposes. Philosophically, the existence of natural evil challenges the notion of a benevolent and omnipotent creator. Why would a loving God design a world where natural forces cause indiscriminate suffering? One theological response is the soul-making theodicy, proposed by Irenaeus and later developed by John Hick. This view suggests that natural evil serves as a context for moral and spiritual growth, providing opportunities for humans to develop virtues such as courage, compassion, and resilience. Another perspective is the greater good defense, which argues that the presence of natural evil contributes to the overall goodness and complexity of creation. Natural processes, including those that result in suffering, are part of a dynamic and interdependent ecosystem that supports life and fosters diversity. The beauty and order of the natural world, as well as the capacity for humans to exercise stewardship and care, are seen as outweighing the instances of natural evil. No discussion of evil would be complete without addressing the role of Satan, the adversary who embodies the principle of opposition to God's will. The figure of Satan appears in both the Old and New Testaments, representing the active force of evil that seeks to undermine God's purposes and lead humanity astray. In the Old Testament, Satan is introduced in the book of Job as the accuser, challenging Job's righteousness and provoking his suffering. This portrayal underscores the idea of a cosmic conflict between good and evil, with Satan acting as a tester of human faith and integrity. Similarly, in Zechariah 3:1-2, Satan appears as the accuser of the high priest Joshua, opposed by the angel of the Lord. In the New Testament, Satan's role becomes more pronounced as the tempter and deceiver. The temptation of Jesus in the wilderness, Matthew 4:1-11, highlights Satan's efforts to derail the mission of the Messiah through enticements of power, glory, and self-preservation. Jesus' rejection of these temptations affirms his commitment to the divine will and his victory over the forces of evil. Theologically, Satan's existence raises questions about the origin and purpose of evil within the divine plan. Some traditions view Satan as a fallen angel, originally created good but corrupted by pride and rebellion against God. This narrative emphasizes the theme of free will and the possibility of moral failure, even among spiritual beings. Scripturally, the ultimate defeat of Satan is assured. The book of Revelation depicts the final victory of Christ over Satan and his forces, culminating in their judgment and consignment to the lake of fire, Revelation 20:10. This eschatological vision reinforces the hope of redemption and the restoration of all things under God's sovereign rule. Exploring the nature of evil involves a multifaceted examination of moral and natural evil, as well as the role of Satan. Each aspect presents unique challenges and insights, contributing to a deeper understanding of the complex interplay between human freedom, divine justice, and the cosmic struggle between good and evil. Through this exploration, we gain a richer appreciation of the profound mysteries at the heart of our faith and the enduring quest for meaning and redemption in a world marked by suffering and hope. In the grand tapestry of the universe, the presence of evil often serves as a perplexing and challenging element. However, from a theological perspective, evil can be understood as a means for testing and spiritual growth. This view posits that the trials and tribulations we encounter are not arbitrary acts of a capricious deity, but are integral to our development as moral and spiritual beings. One of the most profound illustrations of this concept is found in the story of Job. Job, described as blameless and upright, Job 1:1, becomes the subject of a cosmic test. Satan challenges God, suggesting that Job's faithfulness is contingent upon his prosperity and protection. God permits Satan to afflict Job, stripping him of his wealth, family, and health. Throughout his ordeal, Job grapples with intense suffering and profound questions about justice and divine purpose. His journey is not merely about enduring pain, but about confronting the depths of his faith and understanding of God. In the end, Job's restoration signifies not just the return of his fortunes, but the deepening of his spiritual insight and relationship with God. The story of Abraham's test on Mount Moriah further illustrates this theme. God commands Abraham to sacrifice his beloved son Isaac, a directive that seems to contradict God's promises and moral law. Abraham's willingness to obey, even to the point of raising the knife, demonstrates his absolute trust in God. This test reveals the depth of Abraham's faith and solidifies his status as the father of nations. The ram provided as a substitute for Isaac underscores the notion that God's tests are ultimately designed to strengthen, not destroy, the faithful. The New Testament also offers insights into the role of testing and growth through the experience of Jesus in the wilderness. After his baptism, Jesus is led by the Spirit into the desert, where he fasts for 40 days and is tempted by Satan, Matthew 4:11. These temptations challenge Jesus' identity and mission, offering him shortcuts to power, glory, and sustenance. Jesus' steadfast rejection of these temptations affirms his commitment to God's will and his readiness to embark on his redemptive mission. This period of testing serves to fortify Jesus for the trials ahead, demonstrating that even the Son of God undergoes a process of proving and strengthening. The argument that evil serves a greater good in the divine plan is rooted in the belief that God's wisdom and purposes transcend human understanding. From this perspective, the presence of evil and suffering in the world is not an indication of divine malevolence or impotence, but a testament to the intricate and purposeful design of creation. One philosophical articulation of this view is found in the writings of Augustine. He proposed that evil is not a substance but a privation of good, a deviation from the perfect order of creation. According to Augustine, God permits evil to exist because it serves to highlight and contrast the good, thereby allowing for a fuller appreciation of divine goodness and justice. In this view, the existence of evil and suffering is ultimately redemptive, pointing towards a greater narrative of restoration and harmony. Thomas Aquinas further developed this idea, arguing that God's providence ensures that even the acts of evil and suffering contribute to the overall good of the universe. Aquinas likened the world to a great work of art, where the shadows and darker hues are necessary to enhance the beauty and depth of the masterpiece. Thus, the presence of evil and suffering, while challenging, is integral to the richness and completeness of the created order. This concept is vividly illustrated in the narrative of Joseph in the Old Testament. Sold into slavery by his jealous brothers, Joseph endures years of hardship and imprisonment. However, his suffering positions him to interpret Pharaoh's dreams and ultimately save Egypt and his own family from famine. Reflecting on his journey, Joseph tells his brothers, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." Genesis 50, verse 20. This statement encapsulates the belief that God's providence can transform human evil into a means for achieving greater good. The New Testament offers the ultimate example of this principle in the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus Christ. The crucifixion, an act of profound injustice and evil, becomes the means through which humanity's redemption is achieved. The suffering and death of Christ, viewed through the lens of resurrection, reveal a divine purpose that encompasses and transcends human sin and suffering. As Paul writes in Romans 8:28, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." Philosophically, this view is also supported by the concept of the best possible world, as articulated by Leibniz. He argued that an omniscient, omnipotent, and benevolent God would create the best of all possible worlds, a world in which the presence of evil and suffering is necessary for the realization of greater goods. These greater goods might include the development of virtues such as courage, compassion, and resilience, which arise in response to adversity. The presence of evil and suffering can be seen as serving a divine purpose that ultimately leads to greater good. This perspective invites us to trust in the wisdom and providence of God, even when confronted with the harsh realities of life. It challenges us to look beyond the immediate pain and to perceive the unfolding of a redemptive narrative that encompasses all of creation. In this light, evil and suffering, rather than negating the goodness of God, become instruments through which His glory and love are ultimately revealed. The question of whether God is responsible for evil strikes at the heart of theodicy, the endeavor to reconcile the existence of evil with the belief in a benevolent and omnipotent deity. This debate has engaged theologians and philosophers for centuries, each offering perspectives that attempt to illuminate the divine mystery. One viewpoint suggests that God, as the creator of all things, must be ultimately responsible for the existence of evil. This perspective draws upon scriptural affirmations such as Isaiah 45 verse 7, where God declares, "I form the light and create darkness. I bring prosperity and create disaster. I, the Lord, do all these things." Here, God's sovereignty encompasses both the good and the calamitous, indicating that nothing exists outside His will or purpose. However, the assertion that God directly creates evil conflicts with the core belief in his perfect goodness. To navigate this paradox, theologians have proposed that while God permits evil, he does not cause it in a direct, deterministic manner. Instead, evil arises from the misuse of free will by created beings. This distinction is crucial in maintaining the moral integrity of God while acknowledging the presence of evil in the world. Augustine, one of the most influential early church fathers, argued that evil is not a substance, but a privation of good, a corruption of the good that God created. According to Augustine, God endowed angels and humans with free will, and it was through the misuse of this freedom that evil entered the world. Thus, while God created beings capable of evil, he did not create evil itself. This perspective preserves God's goodness by attributing the origin of evil to the choices of free agents. Thomas Aquinas further refined this understanding, asserting that God's permission of evil serves a greater good. In his Summa Theologica, Aquinas writes that God allows evil to exist because it contributes to the greater harmony and ultimate good of the universe. Evil, in this view, is a necessary contrast that highlights the goodness and justice of God, much like shadows enhance the perception of light in a painting. Modern theologians, such as Alvin Plantinga, have expanded upon these classical views with the free will defense. Plantinga argues that a world containing free creatures capable of moral good is more valuable than a world of automatons. For genuine love and moral goodness to exist, there must be the possibility of choosing evil. Therefore, God's creation of a world with free will inevitably includes the potential for evil, but this does not impugn his goodness or omnipotence. The human perspective on suffering is deeply intertwined with the question of evil, as it is through suffering that we most acutely experience the presence of evil in our lives. Suffering challenges our understanding of divine love and justice, prompting us to seek meaning and solace in the face of inexplicable pain. From a theological standpoint, suffering can be seen as a means through which God accomplishes his purposes in the lives of individuals and communities. The Bible is replete with narratives that depict suffering as a tool for refining character, testing faith, and fostering dependence on God. The Apostle Paul, in his letter to the Romans, writes, "We also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope." Romans 5, verse 3-4. Here, suffering is not seen as an arbitrary affliction, but as a process that leads to spiritual growth and hope. The story of Joseph provides a powerful example of how suffering can serve a greater divine purpose. Sold into slavery by his brothers, Joseph endures years of hardship and imprisonment. Yet through these trials, he rises to a position of influence in Egypt, ultimately saving many lives during a severe famine. Reflecting on his journey, Joseph tells his brothers, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." Genesis 50:20. Joseph's perspective underscores the belief that God can transform human evil into a vehicle for his redemptive work. In the New Testament, the ultimate demonstration of suffering with purpose is found in the passion and crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Jesus' suffering and death, though caused by human injustice and cruelty, are central to the Christian narrative of salvation. Through his suffering, Jesus identifies with human pain, bearing the weight of sin, and providing a path to reconciliation with God. The resurrection transforms the tragedy of the cross into a triumph of divine love and justice, affirming that suffering, while real and profound, is not the final word. Philosophically, the problem of suffering is addressed through various theodicies that attempt to reconcile it with the existence of a loving and just God. The soul-making theodicy, proposed by Irenaeus and further developed by John Hick, suggests that the world is a vale of soul-making, where suffering and adversity are necessary for the development of virtuous character. This view posits that our experiences of suffering are essential to our moral and spiritual maturation, leading us toward a deeper relationship with God. Moreover, the existential approach to suffering, as articulated by figures like Viktor Frankl, emphasizes the individual's search for meaning in the midst of pain. Frankl, a Holocaust survivor, observed that those who found meaning in their suffering were more likely to endure and transcend it. His work highlights the capacity of the human spirit to find purpose and hope even in the darkest circumstances. The paradox of a good God allowing evil and the human experience of suffering are profound and complex issues that have been explored through theological, philosophical, and existential lenses. While the existence of evil and suffering challenges our understanding of divine love and justice, it also invites us to trust in the wisdom and goodness of God. Through the narratives of Scripture, the reflections of theologians, and the lived experiences of countless individuals, we glimpse a deeper truth, that even in the midst of suffering, there is a redemptive purpose that points us toward hope and transformation. The annals of archaeology offer profound insights into the ancient world, shedding light on the perennial question of evil and suffering. Among the most significant discoveries are the Dead Sea Scrolls and other ancient manuscripts, which provide a rich tapestry of theological reflections and historical contexts that deepen our understanding of these complex issues. The Dead Sea Scrolls, unearthed in the mid-20th century near the site of Qumran, are a treasure trove of biblical and extra-biblical texts dating from the 3rd century BCE to the 1st century CE. These texts include fragments of nearly every book of the Hebrew Bible, as well as apocryphal and pseudepigraphal writings, commentaries, and sectarian documents of the Jewish community that inhabited Qumran. Among these scrolls, the texts that grapple with themes of evil and suffering are particularly illuminating. For instance, the War Scroll 1QM depicts an apocalyptic battle between the Sons of Light and the Sons of Darkness, symbolizing the cosmic struggle between good and evil. This narrative reflects the community's eschatological beliefs and their anticipation of divine intervention to eradicate evil and establish righteousness. The Thanksgiving hymns, Hodayot 1QH, another significant collection, offer a window into the personal and communal experiences of suffering and divine deliverance. These hymns express profound gratitude for God's protection and salvation amid trials, underscoring a theology that sees suffering as a crucible for spiritual refinement and a testament to God's ultimate justice and mercy. Additionally, the Genesis Apocryphon, 1 Ken, retells and expands upon biblical stories, providing insights into the community's interpretation of Genesis narratives. This text includes detailed accounts of Noah's life, emphasizing themes of divine judgment and mercy. The flood narrative, in particular, illustrates the community's belief in a God who punishes wickedness, but also preserves a remnant for the sake of renewal and redemption. The Book of Enoch, fragments of which were found among the Dead Sea Scrolls, is another critical text that addresses the origin and perpetuation of evil. Enochian literature, particularly the Book of the Watchers, describes the fall of the Watchers, angelic beings who transgress divine boundaries by cohabiting with human women and teaching forbidden knowledge. This narrative provides a mythological explanation for the proliferation of evil and suffering, attributing it to the corruption introduced by these fallen beings. The Book of Enoch also looks forward to divine retribution and the ultimate restoration of justice. The insights gleaned from these ancient texts challenge and enrich traditional interpretations of evil and suffering in several ways. Firstly, they reveal a diversity of thought within the Jewish tradition regarding the nature and origin of evil. The sectarian writings of Qumran, with their dualistic worldview, contrast with the more monotheistic and holistic perspectives found in other parts of the Hebrew Bible. This diversity suggests that early Jewish communities grappled with these issues in varied and dynamic ways, reflecting their historical and social contexts. The apocalyptic literature of the Dead Sea Scrolls, with its stark portrayal of cosmic conflict, invites us to reconsider the traditional theodicies that emphasize human free will and moral responsibility. Instead, these texts highlight the role of supernatural forces and eschatological expectations in the unfolding drama of good and evil. This apocalyptic framework offers a broader perspective on suffering, viewing it as part of a larger divine plan that culminates in the ultimate triumph of righteousness. Moreover, the emphasis on divine justice and mercy in the Thanksgiving hymns and other sectarian writings resonates with the biblical theme of God's faithfulness in the face of human frailty and sin. These texts remind us that suffering, while real and often inexplicable, is not devoid of meaning. Instead, it serves as a context for experiencing God's redemptive power and deepening our reliance on His providence. The narrative expansions in the Genesis Apocryphon and the Book of Enoch also invite us to re-examine the biblical stories with fresh eyes. These retellings emphasize the themes of divine judgment and mercy, reinforcing the notion that evil and suffering are not the final word. Instead, they are integral to a narrative of redemption that unfolds through God's interaction with humanity. The Enochian literature, in particular, challenges us to consider the cosmic dimensions of evil, suggesting that the struggle against wickedness involves both human and supernatural agents. In light of these discoveries, traditional interpretations of evil and suffering must be expanded to incorporate the richness and complexity of ancient Jewish thought. This broader perspective not only deepens our understanding of the biblical texts, but also enriches our theological reflections on the nature of God, the problem of evil, and the hope for redemption. The ancient texts unearthed by archaeology, particularly the Dead Sea Scrolls, provide invaluable insights into the ancient Jewish understanding of evil and suffering. These texts reveal a diversity of perspectives and theological reflections that challenge and enrich traditional interpretations. By engaging with these ancient writings, we gain a deeper appreciation for the complexity of the problem of evil and the profound hope for divine justice and mercy that underlies the biblical narrative. Through this engagement, we are invited to trust in the wisdom and goodness of God, even amid the realities of suffering and evil. Beliefs about evil have profoundly influenced societal norms and laws throughout history, shaping the moral and ethical frameworks within which human societies operate. These beliefs have often drawn from religious teachings, particularly those found in the Judeo-Christian tradition, which have provided a foundational understanding of good and evil. In ancient Israel, the laws given to Moses, known as the Torah, were deeply intertwined with the concept of evil. The commandments, statutes, and ordinances were not merely legalistic, but moral imperatives designed to create a just and holy society. For instance, prohibitions against murder, theft, and false witness were rooted in the understanding that such acts were inherently evil and violated the divine order. The influence of these laws extended beyond religious practice, shaping the ethical norms of the community and establishing a framework for justice that emphasized retribution and restoration. In medieval Europe, the Church wielded significant influence over societal norms and laws. The concept of evil was central to the Church's moral teaching and legal judgments. Heresy, witchcraft, and other forms of perceived moral deviation were not only theological concerns, but also legal matters. The Inquisition, for instance, was an institutional effort to combat heresy, perceived as a profound evil threatening the spiritual and social fabric of Christendom. The belief in the devil's active role in tempting humans to sin led to harsh measures against those accused of witchcraft, reflecting the societal fear of evil's pervasive influence. The Protestant Reformation in the 16th century brought significant changes to the understanding and societal impact of evil. Reformers like Martin Luther and John Calvin emphasized the pervasive nature of sin and the need for divine grace. Their teachings challenged the existing ecclesiastical structures and laws, advocating for a return to what they perceived as the biblical foundations of morality and justice. The Reformation's emphasis on individual conscience and direct access to the scriptures led to a transformation in societal norms, encouraging personal responsibility and moral integrity. In modern times, the Enlightenment introduced a shift in the perception of evil. Philosophers like Voltaire and Rousseau critiqued the traditional religious explanations of evil, advocating for a more rational and humanistic approach to morality. The Enlightenment's emphasis on reason, science, and human rights influenced legal and social reforms, aiming to reduce suffering and promote justice through empirical knowledge and secular governance. This period saw the development of legal systems that prioritized individual freedoms and societal well-being, often in contrast to the earlier, more punitive approaches to dealing with evil. Examining historical events described in the Bible and their impact on the understanding of evil offers valuable insights into how these narratives have shaped cultural and moral frameworks. For instance, the story of the Exodus, where God delivers the Israelites from slavery in Egypt, highlights the themes of liberation and divine justice. This narrative has inspired countless movements for social justice and human rights, emphasizing the belief that evil, represented by oppression and slavery, can be overcome through divine intervention and moral courage. Similarly, the accounts of Israel's conquest of Canaan, with their emphasis on divine judgment against the Canaanites, have been interpreted in various ways throughout history. While some have seen these narratives as justifying the eradication of evil through warfare, others have grappled with the ethical implications of such actions, leading to more nuanced understandings of justice, mercy, and the nature of divine commands. The Babylonian exile, another significant event in biblical history, profoundly influenced the Jewish understanding of evil and suffering. The destruction of Jerusalem and the Temple and the subsequent captivity were seen as consequences of the nation's sin and unfaithfulness. This period of suffering and reflection led to a deeper theological introspection and the development of prophetic literature that emphasized repentance, hope, and the promise of restoration. The themes of exile and return have continued to resonate throughout Jewish and Christian history, shaping theological responses to suffering and the hope for redemption. The crucifixion of Jesus Christ, the central event in Christian theology, embodies the paradox of a good God allowing profound evil and suffering. The historical and theological significance of the crucifixion has influenced countless cultural and ethical reflections on the nature of sacrifice, redemption, and the defeat of evil. The Passion narratives highlight the themes of innocent suffering and the ultimate triumph of good over evil, providing a framework for understanding and enduring suffering in the hope of divine justice. In contemporary times, historical critical methods of biblical scholarship have sought to understand these narratives within their historical contexts, examining the cultural, political, and religious factors that shaped them. This approach has led to a more nuanced understanding of the biblical texts, recognizing their complexity and the multiple layers of meaning they convey. By situating these stories within their historical contexts, scholars have provided insights into how these narratives have been used to justify, challenge, and transform societal norms and laws throughout history. The beliefs about evil and their portrayal in biblical narratives have had a profound impact on societal norms and laws. From the ancient laws of Israel to the medieval church's influence, from the Reformation's call for moral integrity to the Enlightenment's rational approach, these beliefs have shaped the moral and ethical frameworks of societies throughout history. The historical events described in the Bible continue to influence contemporary understandings of evil, justice, and redemption, offering valuable lessons and insights for navigating the complexities of human existence. Through the lens of these narratives, we gain a deeper appreciation for the enduring struggle against evil and the hope for a just and compassionate world. In the ever-evolving landscape of theological thought, progressive theology has emerged as a significant movement that seeks to reinterpret and recontextualize traditional doctrines in light of contemporary understanding and experiences. This approach is particularly pertinent when addressing the problem of evil, as progressive theologians strive to offer fresh perspectives that resonate with modern sensibilities and challenges. Progressive theology often begins with a critical reassessment of classical theodicies and doctrines, aiming to construct a more inclusive and compassionate framework. One of the key tenets of progressive theology is the emphasis on God's immanence and relationality, moving away from a purely transcendent and detached deity. This shift underscores the belief that God is intimately involved in the world, sharing in human suffering, and working within the constraints of creation to bring about healing and justice. A notable figure in this movement is John Shelby Spong, an Episcopal bishop known for his efforts to reformulate Christian doctrines. Spong challenges traditional views on original sin and the inherent depravity of humanity, arguing instead for an understanding of evil that focuses on systemic and structural injustices. He emphasizes the need for a theology that promotes human dignity and social justice, aligning the fight against evil with the pursuit of equality and liberation. Another influential thinker is Jürgen Moltmann, whose theology of hope provides a framework for understanding suffering and evil in the context of God's redemptive purposes. Moltmann's concept of the crucified God highlights the idea that God participates in human suffering through the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. This participation is not a distant observation, but a profound engagement that transforms suffering into a pathway to hope and renewal. Moltmann's theology challenges the traditional notion of an impassible God and presents a vision of divine solidarity with the suffering. Process theology, as developed by thinkers like Alfred North Whitehead and Charles Hartshorne, also offers a progressive perspective on the problem of evil. This school of thought views God as dynamically interacting with creation, influencing and being influenced by the unfolding processes of the universe. In this framework, evil is not a product of divine will, but a consequence of the inherent freedom and unpredictability of a world in process. God works persuasively rather than coercively, guiding creation toward greater complexity, beauty, and goodness. Process theology thus reframes the problem of evil as an aspect of a creative and evolving cosmos in which God is a fellow sufferer and co-creator. Contemporary debates often challenge traditional beliefs about evil, pushing for a re-examination of doctrines that have long been taken for granted. One of the primary areas of contention is the doctrine of original sin, which has historically posited that humanity inherits a sinful nature due to the fall of Adam and Eve. Critics argue that this doctrine is not only theologically problematic, but also ethically troubling, as it can perpetuate a sense of inherent human guilt and unworthiness. Feminist theologians, such as Rosemary Radford Ruether, critique traditional doctrines of sin and evil for their patriarchal underpinnings. They argue that these doctrines have often been used to justify the subjugation of women and other marginalized groups. Ruether and others advocate for a theology that reclaims the goodness of creation and emphasizes the interconnectedness of all life. This approach seeks to dismantle systems of oppression that perpetuate evil and to promote a vision of justice and flourishing for all. Another significant challenge comes from liberation theology, which emerged in Latin America in the mid-20th century. Liberation theologians such as Gustavo Gutierrez and Leonardo Boff argue that traditional theologies have often been complicit in maintaining social inequalities and injustices. They emphasize the preferential option for the poor and the need to address systemic evils such as poverty, racism, and environmental degradation. Liberation theology calls for a praxis-oriented approach that integrates faith with the struggle for social justice, viewing the fight against evil as an active and communal endeavor. The problem of natural evil, suffering caused by natural disasters, diseases, and other non-human factors, also presents a significant challenge to traditional theodicies. Critics argue that explanations based on human free will do not adequately account for such suffering. In response, some theologians propose a reimagining of divine power, suggesting that God does not unilaterally control every aspect of creation, but works within its natural laws and processes. This perspective, often associated with open theism and process theology, posits a God who is not omnipotent in the classical sense, but is instead deeply empathetic and responsive to the needs and struggles of creation. As theological thought continues to evolve, emerging trends and predictions about the future of discussions on evil suggest a move toward greater inclusivity, interdisciplinarity, and practical engagement. One notable trend is the increasing dialogue between theology and the sciences, particularly in areas such as cosmology, biology, and psychology. This interdisciplinary approach seeks to integrate scientific insights with theological reflections, providing a more holistic understanding of the nature and origins of evil. Eco-theology is another burgeoning field that addresses the environmental dimensions of evil. The ecological crisis has prompted theologians to consider the ways in which traditional doctrines have contributed to the exploitation and degradation of the natural world. Eco-theologians advocate for a theology that emphasizes the intrinsic value of all creation and calls for a renewed commitment to environmental stewardship and justice. This perspective challenges anthropocentric views of evil and expands the moral horizon to include the well-being of the entire planet. The future of theological thought on evil will also likely see a continued emphasis on practical theology, which focuses on the lived experiences and practices of faith communities. This approach prioritizes the ways in which theological concepts are embodied and enacted in everyday life, emphasizing the importance of pastoral care, community building, and social action. Practical theology seeks to bridge the gap between abstract doctrines and concrete realities, offering a more accessible and relevant framework for addressing the problem of evil. Modern theological debates on evil are characterized by a dynamic interplay of traditional and progressive perspectives. Progressive theology offers new insights into the nature of evil and suffering, emphasizing God's immanence, relationality, and solidarity with creation. Contemporary challenges to traditional views call for a re-examination of doctrines in light of social justice, inclusivity, and environmental concerns. The future of theological thought on evil promises to be interdisciplinary, practical, and deeply engaged with the pressing issues of our time, inviting us to continually seek a deeper understanding of the divine purpose in the midst of a complex and often troubling world. Throughout history, the depiction of evil in art and literature has served as a mirror reflecting humanity's deepest fears, moral struggles, and the eternal battle between good and evil. These representations provide profound insights into how different cultures and eras have understood and grappled with the concept of evil. In ancient civilizations, evil was often personified through mythological figures and stories. The ancient Greeks, for instance, depicted evil through their pantheon of gods and monsters. The tales of Pandora's box, which unleashed all the evils into the world, and the sufferings of Prometheus, punished for defying Zeus, illustrate the Greek understanding of evil as both a cosmic force and a consequence of human actions. Medieval Christian art is replete with vivid depictions of hell and damnation, serving as stark reminders of the consequences of sin. The Last Judgment scenes, such as those painted by Giotto in the Scrovegni Chapel, vividly portray the eternal punishment of the wicked and the triumph of the righteous. These works were designed to evoke a moral response, urging viewers to repent and seek salvation. During the Renaissance, the depiction of evil evolved with the resurgence of classical themes and humanism. Artists like Hieronymus Bosch created fantastical and grotesque images of hell and temptation, reflecting the complexity and often surreal nature of evil. Bosch's triptych, The Garden of Earthly Delights, presents a detailed and imaginative exploration of sin and its consequences, blending religious themes with a rich tapestry of allegory and symbolism. The Romantic era brought a shift in the portrayal of evil, emphasizing the individual's inner struggle and the sublime nature of darkness. Literature from this period, such as Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and Goethe's Faust, explores the depths of human ambition and the tragic consequences of overreaching. These works delve into the psychological aspects of evil, presenting it as an inherent part of the human condition. In the 20th century, the atrocities of war and the rise of totalitarian regimes profoundly influenced artistic depictions of evil. The works of George Orwell, particularly 1984, and the paintings of Francisco Goya, such as The Disasters of War, provide stark commentary on the capacity for human cruelty and the pervasive nature of evil in society. These representations serve as powerful critiques of political oppression and the dehumanizing effects of unchecked power. In contemporary art and literature, the depiction of evil continues to evolve, reflecting the complexities and ambiguities of the modern world. Today's representations often blur the lines between good and evil, challenging traditional moral dichotomies and exploring the gray areas of human experience. Modern literature frequently delves into the psychological dimensions of evil, presenting it as a multifaceted and often ambiguous force. Works like William Golding's Lord of the Flies and Toni Morrison's Beloved explore the dark recesses of the human psyche and the societal structures that perpetuate evil. These narratives highlight the capacity for both good and evil within individuals and communities, urging readers to confront the uncomfortable realities of human nature. In visual art, contemporary artists like Anselm Kiefer and Damien Hirst use powerful imagery to grapple with themes of suffering, mortality, and the presence of evil in the world. Kiefer's works, often characterized by their monumental scale and haunting symbolism, reflect on the atrocities of history and the persistence of memory. Hirst's provocative installations, such as the physical impossibility of death in the mind of someone living, challenge viewers to contemplate the fragility of life and the inevitability of death. Symbolism in contemporary representations of evil is rich and varied, often drawing on a wide range of cultural and historical references. The use of imagery, such as skulls, decay, and fragmented bodies in modern art, serves as a reminder of the omnipresence of evil and the universal human struggle against it. These symbols invite viewers to reflect on their own experiences and the broader societal implications of evil. In film and media, the portrayal of evil has also become more nuanced and complex. Movies like The Dark Knight and No Country for Old Men present villains who are not merely embodiments of pure evil, but are instead complex characters with their own motivations and moral ambiguities. These narratives explore the interplay between good and evil, often leaving audiences with more questions than answers about the nature of morality and justice. The personal stories and testimonies of individuals who have faced evil and suffering provide profound insights into the human condition and the resilience of the human spirit. These narratives often reveal the transformative power of adversity and the ways in which individuals find meaning and hope amid profound challenges. One of the most powerful examples of personal testimony comes from Holocaust survivors, whose experiences of unimaginable evil and suffering have been documented in memoirs, interviews, and historical accounts. Elie Wiesel's Night is a poignant narrative that recounts his experiences in the concentration camps, highlighting the horrors of evil and the enduring quest for meaning and faith in the face of atrocity. Wiesel's reflections on his suffering and the loss of his family offer profound insights into the human capacity for both cruelty and resilience. Survivors of other genocides and atrocities, such as the Rwandan genocide and the Cambodian killing fields, also provide powerful testimonies of the enduring impact of evil and the strength required to rebuild lives in its aftermath. These personal stories highlight the importance of memory and the ongoing struggle for justice and reconciliation. In more everyday contexts, individuals who have faced personal tragedies, such as the loss of a loved one, serious illness, or traumatic events, often share their journeys of healing and transformation. These stories reveal the ways in which people draw on their faith, community, and inner strength to navigate through suffering. The narratives of those who have found purpose and hope amid their pain offer valuable lessons in resilience and the potential for personal growth. Many individuals who have endured significant suffering report profound spiritual insights and transformative experiences that reshape their understanding of life and faith. These experiences often involve a deepening of spiritual awareness, a renewed sense of purpose, and an enhanced capacity for empathy and compassion. Mystical experiences, where individuals feel a profound connection with the divine or the transcendent, are frequently reported by those who have faced extreme adversity. These experiences can provide a sense of peace and assurance, offering a glimpse of a reality beyond the immediate suffering. Mystics and saints throughout history, such as Saint John of the Cross and Julian of Norwich, have written extensively about their encounters with divine love and the ways in which these experiences transformed their understanding of suffering and evil. Contemporary accounts of near-death experiences also provide fascinating insights into the transformative potential of suffering. Individuals who have come close to death often describe encounters with a loving presence, a review of their lives, and a renewed sense of purpose. These experiences can lead to profound changes in values and priorities, emphasizing the importance of love, forgiveness, and living authentically. For many, the process of healing from trauma and suffering involves a journey of forgiveness and reconciliation. This journey is often marked by moments of profound insight and spiritual awakening. The stories of individuals who have forgiven those who caused them harm, such as survivors of violence or abuse, illustrate the liberating power of forgiveness and the possibility of finding peace and healing, even in the aftermath of evil. The depictions of evil in art and literature, alongside personal testimonies and reflections, offer a rich and multifaceted exploration of the human experience of suffering and the quest for meaning. Through these narratives, we gain a deeper understanding of the nature of evil and the ways in which individuals and communities respond to its presence. Whether through artistic expression, personal storytelling, or spiritual reflection, these insights challenge us to confront the realities of evil and to seek hope, healing, and transformation in the face of adversity. In the realm of modern theological discourse, progressive theology has emerged as a vibrant and transformative force, reshaping traditional doctrines to resonate with contemporary understandings and the complexities of the modern world. This approach, deeply rooted in a commitment to justice, inclusivity, and the lived experiences of believers, offers a fresh lens through which to view the age-old problem of evil. Progressive theologians often begin by re-examining classical theodicies and doctrines, aiming to construct a theology that speaks to the moral and existential challenges of today. Central to this endeavor is the belief in a God who is not distant or detached, but deeply involved in the fabric of creation. This immanent and relational understanding of God emphasizes divine empathy and solidarity with human suffering. John Shelby Spong, a notable figure in progressive theology, has been instrumental in challenging traditional views on sin and evil. Spong contends that the concept of original sin, which posits an inherent human depravity inherited from Adam and Eve, is not only theologically problematic, but also ethically untenable. He advocates for a reinterpretation of sin that focuses on systemic and structural evils, such as racism, sexism, and economic inequality, which perpetuate suffering and injustice. Spung's theology calls for a radical rethinking of Christian doctrines to promote human dignity and social justice. Jürgen Moltmann, another influential thinker, offers a profound theological framework in his Theology of Hope. Moltmann's concept of the crucified God presents a God who participates in human suffering through the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. This participation is not passive but deeply active, transforming suffering into a pathway to hope and renewal. Moltmann's vision challenges the traditional notion of an impassible God and highlights divine solidarity with the suffering, providing a powerful response to the problem of evil. Process theology, developed by Alfred North Whitehead and Charles Hartshorne, presents a progressive perspective that views God as dynamically interacting with creation. In this framework, God influences and is influenced by the ongoing processes of the universe. Evil, from a process theological standpoint, is not a product of divine will, but a consequence of the inherent freedom and unpredictability of a world in process. God works persuasively, not coercively, guiding creation toward greater complexity, beauty, and goodness. This understanding reframes the problem of evil as part of a creative and evolving cosmos in which God is a fellow sufferer and co-creator. Contemporary theological debates frequently challenge traditional beliefs about evil, pushing for a re-examination of doctrines long considered sacrosanct. One of the primary areas of contention is the doctrine of original sin. Critics argue that this doctrine, which asserts that humanity inherits a sinful nature due to the fall of Adam and Eve, is both theologically flawed and ethically troubling. It can perpetuate a sense of inherent human guilt and unworthiness, which some theologians believe undermines the inherent dignity of every person. Feminist theologians, such as Rosemary Radford Ruether, critique traditional doctrines of sin and evil for their patriarchal underpinnings. Ruether argues that these doctrines have often been used to justify the subjugation of women and other marginalized groups. She advocates for a theology that reclaims the goodness of creation and emphasizes the interconnectedness of all life. This approach seeks to dismantle systems of oppression that perpetuate evil and promote a vision of justice and flourishing for all. Liberation theology, which emerged in Latin America in the mid-20th century, also presents a significant challenge to traditional views. Theologians like Gustavo Gutierrez and Leonardo Boff argue that traditional theologies have often been complicit in maintaining social inequalities and injustices. They emphasize a preferential option for the poor and the need to address systemic evils such as poverty, racism, and environmental degradation. Liberation theology calls for a praxis-oriented approach that integrates faith with the struggle for social justice, viewing the fight against evil as an active and communal endeavor. The problem of natural evil, suffering caused by natural disasters, diseases, and other non-human factors, presents another significant challenge. Critics argue that traditional explanations based on human free will do not adequately account for such suffering. In response, some theologians propose a reimagining of divine power, suggesting that God does not unilaterally control every aspect of creation, but works within its natural laws and processes. This perspective, often associated with open theism and process theology, posits a God who is not omnipotent in the classical sense, but is instead deeply empathetic and responsive to the needs and struggles of creation. As theological thought continues to evolve, emerging trends suggest a move toward greater inclusivity, interdisciplinarity, and practical engagement. One notable trend is the increasing dialogue between theology and the sciences, particularly in areas such as cosmology, biology, and psychology. This interdisciplinary approach seeks to integrate scientific insights with theological reflections, providing a more holistic understanding of the nature and origins of evil. Eco-theology is another burgeoning field that addresses the environmental dimensions of evil. The ecological crisis has prompted theologians to consider the ways in which traditional doctrines have contributed to the exploitation and degradation of the natural world. Eco-theologians advocate for a theology that emphasizes the intrinsic value of all creation and calls for a renewed commitment to environmental stewardship and justice. This perspective challenges anthropocentric views of evil and expands the moral horizon to include the well-being of the entire planet. The future of theological thought on evil will also likely see a continued emphasis on practical theology, which focuses on the lived experiences and practices of faith communities. This approach prioritizes the ways in which theological concepts are embodied and enacted in everyday life, emphasizing the importance of pastoral care, community building, and social action. Practical theology seeks to bridge the gap between abstract doctrines and concrete realities, offering a more accessible and relevant framework for addressing the problem of evil. In conclusion, contemporary theological debates on evil are characterized by a dynamic interplay of traditional and progressive perspectives. Progressive theology offers new insights into the nature of evil and suffering, emphasizing God's immanence, relationality, and solidarity with creation. Contemporary challenges to traditional views call for a re-examination of doctrines in light of social justice, inclusivity, and environmental concerns. The future of theological thought on evil promises to be interdisciplinary, practical, and deeply engaged with the pressing issues of our time, inviting us to continually seek a deeper understanding of the divine purpose in the midst of a complex and often troubling world. As we reach the conclusion of our exploration into the profound question, why did God create evil? Let us first revisit the key findings and themes that have emerged throughout our discussion. We embarked on this journey by examining the biblical foundations, uncovering how sacred texts depict the nature of evil and its role within the divine narrative. The Genesis account, with its portrayal of the fall and original sin, set the stage for understanding humanity's inclination towards wickedness and the divine promise of redemption. Our historical and theological interpretations delved into the complex problem of evil, considering the perspectives of early church fathers and medieval theologians who grappled with the coexistence of a benevolent God and the presence of evil. We explored the theological debates surrounding God's sovereignty and human free will, illuminating the enduring struggle to reconcile divine omnipotence with human autonomy. By examining the cultural and comparative context, we broadened our understanding, comparing the biblical perspective on evil with those of other religions. This comparative approach revealed both the unique elements and the universal themes that different faiths bring to the discourse on evil, shedding light on how these views have influenced and shaped Jewish and Christian traditions over time. In the second part of our journey, we ventured into the theological perspectives and debates, distinguishing between moral and natural evil, and scrutinizing the role of Satan in the cosmic drama. We contemplated the divine purpose behind evil, considering how trials and tribulations can serve as a crucible for spiritual growth, and how ultimate good can emerge from the shadows of suffering. The controversial and paradoxical views segment invited us to wrestle with the question of God's responsibility for evil, challenging us to ponder the paradox of a good God permitting evil. We explored how human suffering, viewed through the lens of divine love and justice, can deepen faith and foster a more profound understanding of existence. Our exploration of historical discoveries and modern impact took us into the realm of archaeology and ancient texts, where new findings continue to challenge and confirm traditional interpretations of evil. We examined how these discoveries influence contemporary thought and shape our understanding of biblical narratives. In the final part, we reflected on the personal and cultural dimensions of evil. Artistic and literary representations of evil throughout history provided a rich tapestry of insights, revealing how different eras have grappled with and depicted the nature of evil. Personal testimonies and reflections offered a deeply human perspective, illustrating the transformative power of suffering and the spiritual insights that can emerge from the darkest of times. Reflecting on the enduring significance of the stories and revelations we have encountered, it becomes clear that the question of why God created evil is not one that can be answered with a simple or definitive response. Instead, it invites us into a deeper, more nuanced understanding of the divine and the human condition. Evil, in its myriad forms, challenges us to confront the limits of our understanding and the depth of our compassion. It compels us to seek meaning and purpose in the midst of suffering, to find hope in the face of despair, and to recognize the potential for growth and transformation even in the darkest circumstances. The narratives we have explored, from the ancient texts of the Bible to the personal testimonies of individuals who have faced profound adversity, remind us that the journey through evil is often one of discovery and revelation. It is a journey that can lead to a deeper faith, a stronger sense of community, and a more profound appreciation for the complexities of the human spirit. As we conclude this exploration, let us carry forward the insights we have gained, allowing them to inform our lives and our interactions with others. Let us strive to be instruments of compassion and understanding, recognizing that in addressing the problem of evil, we are also called to be agents of healing and hope. We invite you to join us in this ongoing journey of exploration and reflection. If you have found this discussion thought-provoking and insightful, we encourage you to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and leave your comments and thoughts below. Your feedback is invaluable to us, and we welcome your suggestions for future topics and discussions. Engage with us in the comments section, share your perspectives, and let us know how these themes resonate with your own experiences. Together, we can continue to delve into the profound questions that shape our understanding of the divine and the human condition. Prayer for spiritual strength. O Lord, my rock and my redeemer, I come before you seeking the strength that only you can provide. In the midst of life's trials and tribulations, I often find myself weary and burdened. Grant me the spiritual strength to endure and to rise above the challenges that I face. Fill my heart with your courage and my spirit with your resilience. When I am weak, be my strength. When I am doubtful, be my faith. Help me to trust in your unfailing love and to lean on your everlasting arms. Lord, I ask for the fortitude to remain steadfast in my faith, even when the path is difficult and the journey long. May I find solace in your promises and hope in your presence. Strengthen my resolve to follow you, no matter the cost, and to stand firm in your truth. Empower me to resist the temptations that seek to lead me astray and to overcome the fears that threaten to overwhelm me. Let your Spirit fill me with a boldness that is rooted in humility and a confidence that is grounded in your grace. Grant me the patience to wait on your timing and the perseverance to keep moving forward. In moments of despair, remind me of your great love and the victory that is found in you. May I draw strength from the knowledge that you are with me always, guiding and sustaining me. As I journey through each day, help me to be a source of strength and encouragement to others. Let my life be a testimony to the power of your Spirit, inspiring those around me to seek you and to trust in your mighty power. Thank you, O Lord, for being my constant source of strength. May your power be made perfect in my weakness, and may your name be glorified in all that I do. In your holy name I pray, Amen. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more inspirational content. Leave your comments below and let us know how this video has impacted your journey of faith. Until next time, may the peace of Christ be with you always.